everybody.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to another Monday night workshop. I had to take a double take because I'm using George's notes from his workshop that he did in 1996. So this is really a retro workshop right now. Is retro the right word? It is now. All right. So I want to welcome you all tonight. I'm going to wait. I just heard the door, so I'm just going to wait a little bit. How many people are here from the Omega 2? Just finished. Let's give them a hand. AJ should be meandering in here too, so we can get a few more. All right, so let me just run through the schedule. This is the last thing that we have to do for October, and then the very first thing we'll be doing is the impact training on November 2nd, which Nicole will be delivering, and we don't have a topic yet. Do you have a topic? Jedi number 4?
No.
What's the topic?
Getting rid of stuff.
Getting rid of stuff. Getting rid of stuff. So that will be on November 2nd. The next Omega 1 is November 7th through the 10th. So that's in 2 weeks, I believe. And the Omega 1 in December is the 5th through the 8th. And then, of course, in December's impact training, that'll be December 14th, and that's the third one on meditation that I will be doing. And our next Monday night workshop is November 4th. Am I doing the workshops in November too? Do you have any of that? So I have them both. Diane, do you have any? Or is it me? Alrighty then, I've got the workshops in November and December. Can you believe that Halloween's next week? This year feels like it just flew by, didn't it? It's funny, so I asked my stepson, what's he going to be for Halloween, and he said, I'm going to be a werewolf / zombie / what was the third one? Vampire. A werewolf, zombie, vampire. And I'm like, well, how do you know which part of you is what? And he's like, I have a cape and fangs and a werewolf hands and ears. And I was like, okay then. And then my stepdaughter's going to be, this is funny, the Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, remember those things? Yeah. I didn't even know they existed anymore, but I guess 6 of them are all going to join up and be these green turtles. Alrighty then. So, tonight's topic, let me just ask if anybody has anything they'd like to check in, just while we're waiting for people to meander in. Anybody have anything they'd like to check in on? Say hello. Barbara.
Since I have not been here,
welcome back.
I actually, what I'm checking in about is coming back here. And I've been around here for a long, long time. And we were gone for all summer, then we were in Chicago with my family. And there was nothing I wanted more than to come back here, come to Omega.
Aww.
Really, truly. And it was just, something about going way back into my past, because I grew up there, and just wanting to be here where people say, you certainly analyze everything. I don't want to feel normal back here where
it's Is it Alan who's saying, you certainly analyze everything?
It's my older sister, the only one who didn't come to our wedding here.
Oh.
And my brother and my younger sister kind of, they caught a little bit of it when they were here. But my older sister, you think too hard. I just let go of things. I'm sick and I can't fly, I can't drive, and I have vertigo, but I let go of everything. She's very sweet, I love her to death.
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you for checking in. It's glad to see you. I miss seeing your face. So, are you an official snowbird now?
Semi-snowbird.
Alrighty.
Just 2 months out of that.
Welcome back to your home.
It's good to be back.
Good. Anyone else have anything they'd like to check in on? No? All right. Well, tonight's topic is on the I am. I was looking through George's material, and he's written several workshops on the I am. As a matter of fact, Linda Schulten did an impact training on the I am as well, where she showed a video by the very same title, I am, which was actually quite unique. It was a video written by a director in Hollywood who gave everything up to move into a trailer and donate his money to helping the world, the planet, I guess. So he produced this movie all by himself. It's a nice little movie. But anyway, the topic of I am. George and I used to present a lecture in the Delta programs, which was in between the two Omega programs. And we did it was a pretty good lecture where we talked about the I am pertaining to not just time, but place. Because if you think about I am, it's in the present moment, which is time, but also I am, which is a place. I am sitting right now, so I'm in a space. So we connected the time and place together. So what I wanted to do this evening was, using George's notes, I want to review some of the concepts of the I am, mostly because I'm working on completing the Omega 8, and some of this information has captured my attention. Probably will find its way into an activity in Omega 8. But in order to do this, the first thing I need to do is make sure everybody's hooked up and they have a buddy to work with. So make sure everyone's got little twos, so Anita and AJ are good, and then you can have a Charlie up there.
I'm gonna be the first time.
Alright, so the thing about the I am, thinking of the words I am, if you think about I am, it means present, like the verb. I remember when I was learning Italian, I still remember this to this day. My Italian teacher taught us, it's the verb, where you break the verbs out. It's I am, you are, we are, he, she, or it is. But I am was the only one that came out as am. It was a I am. It doesn't, you don't say we am or you am. It's I am is the only thing that gets the am behind it. So that's in the present tense. In the past, it's I was, and in the future, it's I will be. So I am really does connect to this present moment right now. I am. George used to tell the story of how in the Bible, when the prophet Moses was standing in front of the burning bush, and the bush told him he had to take his shoes off, because when you're standing on holy ground, you take your shoes off, and gave him a message to take back to the people. And when Moses was leaving, he said, I think it's Moses, I'm not sure, a prophet, he said, well, who shall I say sent me? And the voice said, I am. So right there in the Bible, they connected the I am to God, which is in the present moment, which would make sense to me as well. So to be in the present moment, it's just enough to have a deeper sense of who you are. So quickly, what I want you to do is have a conversation right now and talk to your buddy. Describe who you are. If your buddy was to say, who are you, what would you use to describe yourself? May I have your attention, please? All right, let's hear from you. Give me a couple of examples of what you used to describe who you are. Yes, sir.
Well, I was describing when I was born, and my mother and father. Some of the, I guess my father tried to instill the most important thing was respect. I don't know, he didn't say respect, but well, respect for yourself. And if somebody didn't have respect for you, you get rid of it.
All right.
And then my mother, she was kind of just too young. Didn't have any idea what life was all about. So, I only lived with her about 3 years altogether, but she took off, and then she wanted to come back, and my father wouldn't take her back because of the respect. The disrespect the marriage, disrespect the person, and that's the pattern that she set up. And so don't give them a second chance.
All right.
Yeah.
So would you say that you are respect? An
I
element
try
of
to
respect.
get respect.
Okay.
which is very judgmental.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Someone else? Some other words. Heidi Jo.
I began by telling Nicole that I am in a series of traits or characteristics, like courageous or insecure. And when it was Nicole's turn, I thought it was really cool that she talked about those as kind of being parts of us, and that when she thinks of I am, it's like the I that's in all of us, like the divine. So she thought of that as like the I am is that divinity or that essence that's in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really beautiful.
All right. Thank you. AJ?
The first thing that came to my mind is like the meetings every day, just say, I am an alcoholic. Like, oh, that's and then I just when I just started using the characteristics.
Okay, good, thank you. Yes, Tamara?
We all kind of came up with that, we are physical incarnations, and then, of course I go as a parent. I am a soul moving forward, remembering who I am.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on definitions of who you are? There isn't one answer to this. You should know that. So throughout the history, there have been many people who have attempted to find out who they are. Rene Descartes, what was his favorite saying? I think, therefore I am. So that was a philosophical response to the I am question. When it comes to the I am, I mentioned earlier about the idea that it's about place as well as time, and the discovery of the place is actually one of the most important aspects of your personal growth, to know where you are. In one of the study groups, George introduced the concept of remembering your feet. Because when you remember your feet are always existing in the present moment on the ground. And wherever your feet are, that's where you are. One of the most logical and easiest places to start. In Omega 1, we introduce the mountain, where we talk about the point of origin. That's where you are. We start where we are. So the idea of knowing where I am, as well as what time I am, is important. I cannot change the past. I cannot change the future. What can I change? The present moment, where I am exists. We often talk about how I am is, if I am 100% in the present moment, that's when miracles occur. I was thinking about athletes. We often say that when athletes are interviewed, they don't think about the race, they become the race. They just get into the flow and just become the race. That's taking part of everything at once happening. I was thinking of, Mark and I were in Kansas City last week, and we were watching something on TV. They don't have Nova Channel anymore, but it was like the Discovery Channel, along the same lines. Us old people remember Nova. And it was the idea that they were talking about the time, space, continuum, and planets and whatnot. And I remembered an accident I had been in. I must have been in my 20s. And it was one of the most severe accidents that I've been in. And the police officer, when all was said and done, the police officer was completely surprised that I was alive and not as injured as I should have been. So I remember what had occurred. I was in a souped-up Mustang. I had the seatbelt, that race car seatbelts. It was this big, thick piece of leather. That was it. There was no harness or anything. Because back then, you didn't have seatbelts. So we just had this leather thing that kind of it didn't even have a clasping thing. It was just like a loop that connected together. And we were flying by. It was at nighttime. We were doing close to 100 miles an hour in the rain. Light turns red, and the person who was driving went straight through the light. And as we began to hydroplane, time started to slow down. Has anybody ever had this experience? Oh, good, thank you. So I remember, as time was slowing down, I lost all sensation of fear. I wasn't afraid. I knew that we were going way too fast, but as soon as time started to slow down, it's almost as if I detached, and I became an observer. And I watched. Fear dissipated. I was more curious to see how things were unfolding. I didn't feel the seat I was sitting in anymore. I couldn't hear the roar of the engine or the squealing of the tires. All I became aware of, and I think this is the only thing I did maintain, was sight. So I saw the taillight of a car as it bounced in front of me, came straight here, and then stopped, and for some reason bounced, and I watched it go all the way behind me, and right behind my seat bounced back into me, into the car I was in, and then continue down. And as I'm watching that, I'm also seeing the 7-Eleven across the street, people running, and we did a couple of 360s, I guess, and ran over a highway sign, which I did not know. So I wasn't aware of any of that. I was more just aware of what was happening on my side of the car and that there was no sound. I had no sound whatsoever. It was just observation. And again, no fear. And then when we stopped literally about this close to a large oak tree. I mean, a large oak tree. We were this close to it. And when the car stopped, that's when time kind of hit, and then that's when I heard everything and felt everything. And that's when the fear came in. Get out of the car now, in case it blows up. Get out of the car. I mean, I don't know the mechanics of cars, but it could blow up, I don't know. So the person who was driving, I smacked her across the face because she was in shock. And I'm yelling at her, get out of the car, because I went to open my door and it wasn't a door. It was just like a clump of metal. So pushed her out of the car, I got out of the car, my legs couldn't support me, I fell flat to the ground, and my friends were in my car behind me. Now this is the insanity of the whole thing. She was drunk, and I didn't want her to be a drunk driver, so I got in the car to make sure she would drive normally. Yeah, I didn't have much of a sense back then. But anyway, I remember the idea that I didn't see anything, but I felt it all, and I had no fear. And I actually loved that part, that I was in this accident, but I wasn't afraid. And when I went back to see the car 2 weeks later that was in the impound, it was really kind of shocking. There was just a bubble of metal on my side. Everything else was completely collapsed. And then I understood why the cop said, what the heck, you should be dead, because just the way it was set up. And I just walked away with internal injuries and a cut across my eye. I could have lost my eye, and I didn't, just a cut above my eye. But the point was, at that moment, I feel like I am. I felt everything but nothing. I saw everything but just, again, what I was seeing. So it was the ability to detach and observe, and this wasn't the first time I've had this in my life. I've experienced this a number of times. But that one was one of the most traumatic ones because there really was a lot that I should have physically been experiencing, but it's almost as if I left the physical. So it makes me think that the I am exists on many different levels. So I can say to you physically, I am 5'2". That's a truth. Emotionally, I could say, I am married. That's an emotional. I have love, or no, I am love. Mentally, I could say, I am a woman with 130 IQ. Spiritually, I could say I am spirit. And then I'm not really sure what else to say above that because those are so beyond my comprehension. So if we just lump green, blue, purple, and violet together and call it spiritual, I could say I am spirit, but don't have a definition. That would be essence. That would be a glow, an observation, an awareness, a connection. All of those are words that are locked in a mental level, and it's difficult to describe something above the mental without using mental level. So that's where sometimes we sit and say, I am. Then, so I can say, I am speechless. If I say I am speechless, I'm without speech, but it doesn't mean I do not have thought or experience. So the concept here, I'm going to just go back to what George has here. There's more to I am. So I am not only refers to when, which is time, and where, which is place, but also to who, which is what. The who is the what of the subject. When I am, the question, when am I, where am I, and who am I, are all valid questions and vital in the process of spiritual evolution. The who I am is not the same as what you do. People define ourselves as what we do, as who we are. I am a massage therapist. I am a photographer. I am an executive business coach. And we assume that my job is who I am, but it's not. It's what I do. He says that you may perform the duties of a medical technician, but that's not who you are. Once you know who you are, then you will really know who the medical technician is. So tonight he just wanted to work on the idea of who you are, just that question, who you are. So that's why I have you in dyads right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up to do stem sentence dyads. So you're going to say the same thing over and over again, but I'm also going to give you the answer. So one's going to have the question and one will have the answer, which you'll understand this in a moment. So just to be clear, I want to remind us that we're searching for who, which does not mean we make ourselves, it doesn't mean it have to be organic life. It doesn't have to, we could say, I am integrity. It's not anything organic. It doesn't have lungs or a brain or anything, but that is a level of being. I am integrity. I am courage. We could say that as well. Think about the idea, we talk about transpersonal in omega-4. I'll just briefly mention it here. If there's a telephone ringing in the other room, we typically say, I hear a phone in the other room. But the more involved we become, we recognize the ringing isn't in the other room, the ringing's in my hearing. My hearing is what's picking up the ringing. And then the more evolved, we could actually say, I am the phone, because the phone is actually an image in my mind as well. That's a little bit more advanced, we're not going to get to that tonight. Tonight we're just going to start at the basics of who you are. So, with the A's and the B's, let's pick an A and a B. Gosh, you're all facing me, so form dyads, so you're facing each other, please. A, B, and C's. You just do A, B, C. Or you can just do an A and two B's. Or an A, two B's, and an A. To be or not to be?
Two.
All right, everyone who's facing the mirror, you're the A's. Everybody who's facing the wall with the pictures, you're the B's. All right? So B, yes ma'am. Was that a question?
No, that's
You're a B. So B's are facing this way, A's are facing this way. Now, A's, the question you're going to ask is, who are you? A's, the question you're going to ask is, who are you? B's, your first answer is going to be, I am unity. So A's will say, who are you? B's will say, I am unity. We'll do this 4 times. Ready? Go ahead and now. This constitutes the positive response, but it is incomplete, because everything has a positive and a negative. So the negative response will be now, so A's will still ask the question, who are you? But this time, B's, you're going to answer by saying, I am not separate. That's the negative aspect. It means the same thing as I am unity, but it's the negative aspect. So A's will ask the question again, who are you? And B's, your answer is, I am not separate. Go ahead and begin. 4 times. All right? Now let's do this in reverse. B's, you ask, who are you? And A's, you say, I am unity. And then B's will say, who are you? And this time A's, your response is, I am not separate. All right? So the not separate constitutes the negative aspect of the response. So both responses are accurate, inclusive, and complementary. I am unity is incomplete. It's I am unity and I am not separate. Have a conversation with your buddy about those 2 phrases and if it fits for who you are. Go ahead. May I have your attention, please?
yes, very much so.
So I'd like to hear from some of you. What do you think the concept of I am unity? How does that fit for you? What do you think of that? Does that work or not? It does work.
You take responsibility for your own actions.
All right, take responsibility. What else does I am unity mean?
I was thinking, would you like me to stand?
No, you don't need to, thank you.
I was thinking as we're all unified in life, like animals, plants, people, like we are all alive and unified with life.
All right.
And unified in that we all die then, I guess, too.
So that we could go with united we stand, divided we fall?
Sure.
That would work too. Okay. Anyone else on unity? Contemplating it? Yes, sir.
I think it's, by a concept of unity, it's a drawing together where everything comes together in one. If I am an individual, I didn't say I'm an individual, but somehow the concept of myself brings together everything somehow in one way or another. We can talk about what way or another that may be, but it's the concept of bringing things together.
Would you say it's also the fact that because we're in unity, you can experience me just like I can experience you because we're one and the same? Is that?
Well, that's a corollary. I would say that everything in my concept, everything comes together through my eyes,
Mhm.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Bubba. Mike?
I thought we said yesterday we're all individuals. There's never been another you, there never will be another you. You are, to that extent, no longer you may be a individual unified as the you, but we aren't you. I don't understand the definition of unity.
All right.
And I didn't have a chance to get the phone for a dictionary. Because effectively, I don't know if we would be unified if the field that we're in is big enough.
Okay, do you have a heart?
Yes,
Do I have a heart?
yes.
Thank you.
That means we have heart, that doesn't mean we're unified.
Hold on, hang on with me
Okay.
here.
Oh,
Do you have a brain?
yes,
And do I have a brain?
yes.
So you have a physical entity,
Have a body.
and I have a physical body,
Yeah.
right? So the physical bodies are unique, but when we get down to it, it's just a physical body, isn't it?
Right.
Somebody's interrupting. Do you have emotions?
Sure.
And I have emotions. So we can go, yes.
Well, there are people that don't recognize emotions. They're sociopaths that don't have any
Well, they have no
connection
guilt.
with people.
Yeah,
I mean,
they have no guilt.
right, and they have no connection with people. So to some extent, they have no emotion that you're talking about. You may stick them with a pin and they may feel some sort of pain or something, but
Well, they have passion.
I don't know about that. I'd have to think on that.
I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was pretty passionate about eating people.
That may not have been passion. That might have been, what is the level that's so low that it just, like animalistic?
Yes. Okay,
So I don't know how to tackle this unity's
a good challenge for you.
undefined with me.
Okay.
Unclear.
All right, let me just continue on, okay? All right. So once we know, and according to George, when we recognize the unity, we learn how that we are not separate. That's when we can begin the grasp of remote viewing. Does anybody know what remote viewing is? All right, and ESP and stuff like that. So it means that we're connected in the unconscious levels of ourselves. Somehow we're connected unconsciously. What's in me? What is it in me that's unconscious is most likely unconscious in you. And that's the very same thing. He says it's kind of like a computer disk. We both have the same computer disk. To understand this explains how I am joined with others on the planet. For example, when there's human misery anywhere on the planet, it affects me. I could feel it. I don't have to be there to feel someone else's pain. And so the idea that I thought about is, remember when Princess Diana died? We were doing a training. And I remember, I wasn't very attached to Princess Diana. I just knew, the princess story kind of thing. But when she died, I was overwhelmed with sadness, at crying for days. And I could not understand why. Until I sat and talked to George, and we did talk about this idea of unity. And he said, well, I'm a sensitive individual, and he said the fact that perhaps there are so many people mourning over her, you're tuning into that mourning, and it's affecting you, which I agreed with, because I had no other explanation on why I was so upset with Princess Diana's death, except that there were so many other people on the planet who were upset that I was feeling it and carrying it. So that was that unconscious unity that he talked about. He said to understand this explains why I'm joined with other people on the planet and how they are also joined with me, not just through the obvious emotions. For example, the tsunami that happened in Fukushima a couple of years ago, or was that just last year? Time flies by so fast. But when the people died, you could feel it. 9/11. I remember when 9/11 happened. I remember watching that airplane go into the Twin Towers. No thought of my family, no thought of anything, because I lost family that day, but no thought of it. But what I did think about is those people on the plane. I remember when the Space Challenger blew up in 1986. I watched that on TV, and I felt it. And what I felt was, when that plane exploded, or the Challenger exploded, and it went crashing down to the earth, I knew those people were still alive, screaming towards their death. And as soon as they hit the water, I felt their lives go. Now, George and I have had lots of conversations about that. The idea that I can feel things more. Empathetic is what he would call me, that I had a lot more empathy for things that were happening around. And when the scientists finally did discover it, it was true. They were still alive. They were still alive all the way until they hit the water, because there was no escape hatch. They couldn't get out. So they were filled with fear, and that's what I was feeling, was the fear as that thing was crashing down back to the earth. So that is what he explained it as, unity. But he also said, here's something very simple we can explain as unity. Everything that happens on this planet affects everybody on this planet. When DDT was sold to South America, back years ago, it came back to the United States in the beef that we bought. Do you remember that? That was some time ago. So we purchased tainted beef from the chemical that we sold to South America. It came right back to us. The mercury that we dump in the ocean came back in the tuna. So everything is connected. On this planet, everything is connected, and we feel the outcomes to them. He said, I do not have to know the details such as these to know that I am not separate. If this is too much for you to believe at this time, don't fake it or try to strain with it. Just take some time and allow your judgments to, with or without your judgment or disapproval. He said, just work with the idea of that everything is not, that we are all separate, and we are all not separate, we are unity. Back again to the concept of the positive and the negative aspect. Just as we talk about rhythms and vibrations, you have the positive and the negative. Mark, will you turn the air on? It's a little warm in here. The positive and the negative balances each other out. That's why we say, I am unity, I am not separatist. That's the same two extremes on both sides. If we take one or the other, it throws us off. That's why it's an incomplete statement. So I am unity versus I am not separatist is the same thing. It means the very same thing. So this just has to do with unity and connectivity. I want to go to another topic. It's a different topic, same question, same technique. So A's, we'll go back to A's. A's, the question is, who are you? B's, the response is, I am not untrustworthy. So the response is, I am not untrustworthy. Go ahead and begin. And then, continuing on, A's ask the question, who are you? B's will respond, I am trust. Go ahead. Switching now, B's will ask the question, who are you? And A's, the first response is, I am not untrustworthy. Again, I am trust. Go ahead. And if you wouldn't mind, please have a conversation with your buddy about you are trust. Is that a good definition of you? What does that mean to you? May I have your attention, please? All right, I'd like to hear your comments on the phrase, I am trust. What do you think of that? Do you trust yourself to speak?
You want to hear from me?
Yes, Louis.
Well, just the tone of voice and the feeling that you can convey means a lot. It puts more emphasis on the word itself than just the dictionary value.
Mm-hmm.
You could get 3 different feelings out of it.
All right.
Or at least 3, maybe 4.
Okay, thank you. Someone else? Yes, Erica?
We agreed that I am trust is that not to think of it as something outside of yourself, but that it's already in you, something like a flame that you could put fuel to and make stronger or bigger inside of yourself. You have the trust inside of you already. You are the trust. Right? Am I making sense?
Yes. I am.
And then you express the trust.
Yes.
It's something that's inherently there. It's one of the core values.
So it's within me and I express it. Excellent. Someone else on trust? All right, then I'll just go ahead and talk a little bit more what George said.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, Liz.
It's been my experience that 50% of the time when people say, well, trust me, that something else is gonna go wrong.
Right.
Right?
Or
Murphy's Law.
They're gonna trust you.
Right.
you know.
All right.
I was referring to maybe collecting money or getting somebody's promise and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
It goes into that integrity thing, or whatever.
Okay, thank you. George talks about the idea, let me ask you this quick question. How many people in here trust their instincts? You follow your instincts? That's almost everybody. Then how many people in here have found themselves saying, oh, I should have trusted my instinct on that. And then we go with that. That's probably more common. Where we do something like, oh, I knew better, I should have trusted my first instinct, and most of us don't. So it's more common for us not to trust ourselves than to trust somebody else. We have a tendency to look outside of ourselves, especially if we're invested in approval. What you say, oh yeah, you know what you're talking about, I'll follow you. George used to talk about how his father would only trust people in a uniform. So if somebody came over to do the electricity and they didn't have a uniform on, like the coveralls and stuff that they used to wear back then, he wouldn't trust them. He wouldn't let them in the house. He said even to a milkman, if the milkman was not wearing that milkman uniform, don't bring the milk. Don't try. So his father refused to trust anybody who was not in a uniform. His father also didn't trust things like, apparently his parents lived with him for some time, and George would come home and the lights would all be out, and he's like, what happened? The TV's off. And the father would pull the outlets so nothing was plugged in because he was afraid there was going to be electrical fire when nobody was home. So he'd unplug everything. So the alarm clocks every morning had to be reset because the dad was pulling out the plugs all night, pulling everything out because he was afraid there was going to be an electrical fire. So that's a good example of not trust on that aspect. But again, back to us. We're the ones, when we don't trust ourselves, it's almost like culture has taught us we can't trust ourselves. If you have a degree, then you should trust that person. Science proves it, so we should trust science. Whether or not I believe it, no, science can give me the theological example and understanding of something. So we store up, unfortunately, we also store up a lot of unpleasant memories of how we handle things, where we go, oh, I should have known better, I should have trusted myself. And every time we add some of those memories, that increases our mistrust in ourselves. Oh, I didn't know better that time, I better not listen to myself again. And we start building up all these things of how we didn't handle things, we're unsatisfied with certain things that the way unfolded, so we never fully trust our thinking. He says, it's important for me to remember that when I am asleep, my mind takes outstanding care of my body. When I'm asleep, my mind takes care of my body. So much so that if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, your mind wakes you up so you're not wet in the bed until you get old enough to where you don't feel like getting out of bed anymore and you don't care. Or you're a little kid and you haven't mastered that yet. But for my mind takes care of my body. Now I also have played a little bit with the idea of astral travel. I don't need to be too psyche here tonight, but astral travel is a good example. For those of you who understand the many levels of your body, you have a body that can actually leave the physical body. So in the idea of astral traveling, your essence, soul, ethereal body, whatever you want to call it, leaves. And when it leaves, there's a silver cord that connects you back by your solar plexus. And the concept is that that silver cord should never be broken, otherwise you won't return. You'll be classified as dead. It's also, the people who say you should never die in your dreams. If you see yourself die in your dreams, you actually die in real life. It's not true. I've died in my dreams and I'm still here. I'm waiting. You don't know the story. I wanted to be dead when I was 40, but I'm still here. So anyway, in the readings that I've done about the astral travel, there were many examples of people who they were afraid to practice astral traveling because they were afraid their physical body, something would happen to them. But what they discovered is, through that silver cord connection, if anything occurred, it brought you right back to your body just like that. And you were back in the room and your body was protected. So your mind is in charge of protecting this physical body, even if you leave. Well, you know this. Those of you who drive without paying attention where you're going, you're driving and your mind is off someplace else and you can arrive at a location and not know how you got there. Your mind protected you. You didn't even have to be conscious and it got you to that place. So that's proof that we can trust ourselves, but yet we continue to doubt ourselves. So we've come to believe in the modern world that only science can be trusted. We're encouraged to trust the experts. They say, trust me. I know what I'm talking about, trust me. And they are the ones who usually have the last say on things, and most of the time we go, gosh, I wouldn't have trusted that man. It seems that the more educated we become, this becomes more normal, where we trust the experts rather than our own intuition. To become trust is the beginning of, to thy own self be true. Do you remember that statement? To thy own self be true, and know thyself. In today's world, we don't trust anything unless it's been scientized and technologized. That's a word. Hey, I didn't make up that word. That's George's. If you don't trust your own mind. The neurotics problem is the inability to trust. They say, in order to reverse that, I can trust others, I can trust the universe. So trust, second quality that George wanted to talk about for I am. Remember, we're talking about the I am. So he introduces I am unity, and now I am trust. So here's the third one. Same questions. A's will ask, who are you? And this time, B's, your answer is, I am not ignorance. A's, who are you? B's, I am not ignorance. Go ahead, please. 4 times. Again, A's will still ask the question, who are you? And this time, B's will say, I am knowing. I am knowing. Go ahead. And then have a conversation with, switch. B's ask the question, who are you? A's, you are to say first time, I am not ignorance. Go ahead. And the second part of this now, you are to say, I am knowing. Go ahead, please. Excellent. Now, have a conversation with your buddy about the concept of I am knowing. May I have your attention, please? I'm going to ask you to keep talking about I am knowing, but talk to your buddy about what you know. So talk to your buddy about what you know. Go ahead. May I have your attention, please? I wanted you to talk a little bit about the knowing aspect, because I am aware that to say I am knowing and I am trust seem quite similar, that you trust and you're knowing. And the way that when I read this paper, I was thinking of how I trust my knowing, but I'm not sure I know I trust. Like, it seems backwards to me. It may be not backwards, but it seems very different. Like the trust I have, I trust that I know what to do. So they're two separate things. So first I know, and then I trust I know what to do. So back to the idea of knowing. George says unconsciously, he talks like that. He says unconsciously we know everything. I know how to control every function of my body that I do not consciously know. In other words, I'm not aware of how my digestive system is working right now. I don't know how, or I'm not aware of how my respiratory system is working, or my pulmonary system, the lymphatic system. The only times I do become aware of that is when something's out of alignment, and we call that sick or ailing, so it's misaligned. Other than that, I have no conscious thought process, nor do I even desire to know it. My body takes care of itself. I don't know, or I'm unaware of the gravitational pull right now that keeps me sitting in this chair. I have inklings of it when my equilibrium kicks into play and I am losing my sense of, orientation. But other than that, it's beyond my thought. I'm not wanting to put my attention on it. I am unaware of the planet rotating around. I am unaware that we're spinning around the solar system, around the sun, until I look up at the sun and I remember, oh yeah, the sun, we're part of the solar system. I am unaware of the dark matter. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, I just do not put my focus on it. But if I wanted to, I would become aware of it if I just put my attention on that. So the unconscious knowing, he even says that I know enough to give myself insights, messages through dreams, symbols, and intuition. I'm aware I've had this experience many times, that I've been working on writing something and I can't figure it out. And then all of a sudden I'll have a dream, and there it is, the answer, just like that. And I wake up and I go, thanks, George. I say thanks, George, but I also know it's me that came up with it, that intuition that popped up in my dreams and the symbols. Conscious thoughts are influenced by evidence. Unconscious thoughts require no evidence, but rely on intuition or knowing. So he correlates intuition and knowing together. So that's number 3, I am knowing. So the fourth question. A's, you'll ask the question, who are you? B's, your question is, I am not irresponsible. So that's your question. I am not irresponsible. So go ahead, please. All right, the next half of this is I am responsible. And then we'll switch now. B, ask who are you, and A's will answer I am not irresponsible. Go ahead, please. And then the second half of this is who are you, I am responsible. Go ahead. And now if you would please have a conversation with your buddy about that concept, I am responsible. Go ahead, please. May I have your attention? I'm just going to interject for a moment. While you're talking about that, also talk about the things that you feel responsible for in your life. Go ahead, please.
You have to take it out. You gotta take that responsibility.
May I have your attention, please? Like to hear from some of you. What are the things that you think you're responsible for? Hi, Joe.
I think the more responsible I feel, the more irresponsible I feel.
That's good.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
So like, I think of people who I look at as irresponsible, and like they're not aware that they're irresponsible because they're not aware that they're responsible.
Mm-hmm. So since you're aware of how irresponsible you are.
Right.
Right. Okay, I get it. Thank you. Barbara?
Well, I tended to think about being responsible more from a negative standpoint than from any of the others. And I couldn't quite get myself to see this responsible as a really great, positive.
So personal responsibility?
So personal responsibility.
Yeah, isn't that responsibility? To be personally responsible for things? For your actions?
That's true. Well, that's true.
So you can be responsible for your reactions or actions, for your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm too much on a physical level with the thinking it.
I think you think too much. No, I'm kidding. Curious that you thought this one towards a negative aspect.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
where I was going with it. It's something to think about.
All right then. Mike?
We talked about responsibility from I am responsible, whether it's totally responsible or partially responsible. Because you can have a different responsibility for everything you associate with on the lowest level.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, according to what we said yesterday, if you're in the universe.
Stop holding me accountable yesterday. That was the past.
Okay, think about this then.
I'm just kidding.
If the universe has to adjust to the movement of an atom, we each have responsibility for everything in the universe at some level.
That's the unity.
Oh,
that would join
said
the
that
The light bulb just went on. All right. Anything else? Anyone else have responsibility? Yes, sir.
I think to be responsible, we have to take it on, and if we're irresponsible, that means that we've taken on responsibility and we failed. We got to take it on in order to experience it.
Okay. So being conscious of choosing responsibility.
And to be irresponsible means that you've taken it on.
And I don't
also.
do it. Right. Okay, I got it. Thank you. So I was thinking about responsibility. I like this word responsibility. I've always liked it, the ability to respond. So instead of react, it's a response. I always, the term first responders, those were the first people that went into the 9/11. So the first responders, those are the first people to respond. So I always think about first responders. What does my first response look like? Oh, what does my first response looks like? And they often say that the first impression is the one people remember the most. So that's really your first response. When you're interacting with people, your first response is the impression people have of you. And unfortunately, you're unable to break free from that. So George writes, to be responsible is not only to be the cause, but to be responsible for the proper use of that which I have caused, which goes a little along with Bubba just mentioned. In the external world, cause and effect seem to be a logical system for understanding, but I am responsible goes a little bit further than that. We can think about the Hermetic principles, all is mental. I'm responsible for my mental thinking. We can think about vibration. I'm responsible for the vibration that I'm putting out. I can think about I am responsible for the rhythm. All is rhythm. So I can think about my rhythm. The principle of gender. I'm responsible for balancing things out. So I can apply the responsibility for the 7 Hermetic laws as well. Now, let's go to number 5. This is the last one he's got for you. The question is, who are you? And the response is, I am not divided. So the response is, I am not divided. The next question is, who are you? I am single-minded. I am single-minded. And then switch. Now B's ask the question, and A's the first response is, I am not divided. Go ahead. And the second part of that is, I am single-minded. Go ahead. That was A's, right? All right. If you'll have a conversation with your buddy about being single-minded. And what does that mean to you? Go ahead, please. May I have your attention, please? When I read this part of it, it made me think about focus and willpower, which is really, that's how willpower is developed, by having a single mind. It's the ability to focus and concentrate to one position. Has anybody ever done this? It's a cruel thing to do, but has anybody ever taken a magnifying glass when you were young and put it on an ant and watched the ant burn? It was a horrible little thing to do. I only did it once. It felt horrible. My older brother used to do it all the time. And the thing that I was amazed about mostly, aside from the suffering of that little ant, but the beam of light, that really attracted me. From this glass, condensed down to just a beam of light that was so strong it could cause pain and injury. So, not that my brother was sadistic, he was just a little boy, that's what they do. It was my older brother, by the way, who was doing this. I tell you, Christopher would never do that. Anyway, and I did it once because I was actually just fascinated at looking through the magnifying glass, and I didn't realize I was hurting the ant until it was too late. It was that little burial, funeral thing. I was so upset. But anyway, the idea of single focusedness, that's the concept that we're talking about. I am single-minded. To have one mind means everything is in alignment with one intention at that moment. George was excellent at this. He could be single-focused and boom, that's it. He could get to a point where he doesn't even hear you. You can talk to him, he's not even aware that you're there. My husband does this sometimes too, but I think it's mostly because he's deaf. But we can have single-focused. I asked him a question today, and I'm like, hello, but he was really working on, I'll just say he was working on stuff. But you can have a single intention. You really can't hear if somebody's talking to you. You could be so involved. I've had this happen. I'd be reading a book and I'm not even aware of anything that's coming around me because I'm in that book. So you can be so single-minded and focused, everything else disappears. This can be very beneficial to us. Sometimes it's what enables me to follow the will of my deepest center, the deepest part of me. I access, that's my willpower. It's the ability to not have any other desires but what you're doing right now, to have no other needs but what you're doing right now, have no other goals than what you're doing right now, have no other ambitions than what you're doing right now. It's the ability to really block everything else out and just bring everything to one pointedness and a focus. George introduced this idea, the old-timers will remember this, Assagioli's psychosynthesis. It's the same thing. He says, I have a body, but I am not my body. I have emotions and thoughts, but I am not my emotions. I am not my beliefs. I have desires, but I am not my desires. I recognize and affirm that I am a center of pure self-consciousness. I am a center of will, capable of mastering, directing, and using all of the psychological processes and my physical body. So that's something I've been around. We had that, 20 years ago? Mm-hmm. We've been working with that one. The facilitators, we know this one pretty well. So in conclusion, I want to just go back to the 5 things that you've talked about so far. It's the unity, trust, I am unity, I am trust, I am knowing, I am responsible, and I am single-minded. I want you to have a quick little conversation, those 5 things. When you first discussed who you are, the very first diet I had you do, did you use those? I am unity, I am trust, I am knowing, I am responsible, and I am single-minded. And if you had to define yourself now, would you use them now? So just talk to your buddy about that. Go ahead, please. May I have your attention? I just want to give you the rest of what George has written here. He says, long ago Buddha taught that suffering comes from wrong beliefs. If you have suffering in this life, the first place to look is your beliefs, not the aspirin bottle. That's what George wrote. George's humor. He said, what if Buddha was correct? What if he was correct, and the way that you can alleviate your sufferings is by learning that you are unity, you are trust, you are knowing, you are responsible, and you are single-minded. So I remember when he handed out this workshop, he had suggested to us to use them, like positive affirmations, but to go through them and try them every day. Take inventory. Do you feel this? Do you feel unity? Do you feel trust, knowing, responsible, and single-minded? He said that from time to time, when you go through it, you should feel as if you do. If you don't feel it, don't take it on. But eventually you may be able to come true to believe that they are true. So don't believe they're true just because you're saying the words. They become true when you feel they are true. So that was his suggestion to us back in 1996, was to run through these 5 phrases. I am unity, I am trust, I am knowing, I am responsible, and I am single-minded. To meditate on them, on those phrases. To say them and see if we actually feel them and expand on them. So that's what he came up with, was his idea of I am. In this workshop, that's what he came up with, his I am. What I did was I just printed this copy right here, so what you'll get if you take this home tonight, it's going to say 1996, because I didn't have a chance to rewrite it just yet. I was rewriting it, and I ran out of time today. So I'm just going to give you, in a way, I kind of think it's nice that it's his notes anyway, since this is his workshop. So you'll get this tonight. And then look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks for the next Monday night workshop. So thanks for coming out tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night.